Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Megan. Thank you so much for being here. I usually film vlogs and lifestyle content, also lots of yoga classes. If you're ever interested in that, check out the rest of my channel. But I've been enjoying doing these books of the month. I did one for February and I'll have it linked down in the description below. But I've really been enjoying sharing these because I love reading and I like seeing what other people are reading, and maybe this can spark your interest for something that you would maybe want to pick up at your local library or bookstore. Also, I am filming this and it's slightly windy outside, so if you hear the wind against the window, I apologize, but that's Mother Nature for you. So I guess let's just get started into it. If you saw my last books of the month, I had quite a big stack because I was looking through and reading about gardening. So I had several books used as resources for me to gather my garden. But this is more realistic as what I could average on a month. I think 2 to 3 books is somewhat reasonable, especially I read just like at night or on the weekends in off time if I'm like at an appointment waiting. So just here and there a couple hours, and I think 2 to 3 books feels feasible for me. So my stack is a lot lighter, but still good and worthy of a video. So the first book that I want to start out by talking about is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which this book was actually already in my collection. And my dad had given this to me like years ago, and it's actually written in was published in 1997. So I think it's a decent read. However, I would suggest if you're looking at increasing your literacy towards money, maybe finding resources that are more relevant towards the time in the economic system in the style or the lifestyle that we're currently in. But I do believe that some of these things are still relevant. And I feel like if you guys follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen in the month of March that I did a lot of Women Talk Money with Fidelity events, just increasing my knowledge as a businesswoman and just as an adult about money. I think, you know, in college I took accounting and things like that and a lot of business courses, but it really takes your own desire to really understand something, and that's on like any subject. And that's why I really have enjoyed the library so much, is because, like, for example, in the month of February, I was really interested in gardening, and it's a way to give yourself like a mini classroom course session for yourself and grow your knowledge on a topic that you're interested in. And money is really important to me, as I'm sure it is to a lot of you, and living a smart, conscious, abundant life. And you know, I want to be powerful as a woman and in my business, and I want to be wise. And I think everybody deserves that. So I wanted to take time to read books. I've also read another book. I'll put a picture of it right here, but it's You're Badass at Making Money. I read that like, I think 5 or so years ago, but it's a really great book. I feel like it kind of breaks down a lot of the psychological and emotional blocks that we have towards finances. So I feel like it's a really great way to start to understand your narratives towards money. So that's a really great book. But this is a little bit more in depth about, you know, ways of investing, assets, liabilities, things like that. But one of the things that I did enjoy is really the root of what drives us to money and jobs is the actual fear of money. And you know, everybody sort of like pushes you, if you have a good job, you'll make money and you'll get a raise and you'll, you know, and things like that. But they don't actually teach you your emotional relationship with money. And fear is rooted in a lot. Even if you're rich, you know, people will continue to work and work and work even though they're well off, because they're fearful that they're not going to have enough, you know, even later in life, even if they're older and rich, or, you know, they push their own fear onto their children and encourage them to go to college, get a 9-to-5, like all these things. And it's rooted in fear, which I feel like is a really great point to bring up when it comes to money. And the big key takeaway that I took personally is that, you know, don't work for money, let money work for you, and figuring out ways of like how to do that creatively through your own abilities by, you know, investing, stocks, bonds, all these sorts of things. And instead of just like always chasing money through a job. And I liked how he also put like, you know, you work for money, you work for the government, and you work for the bank, because like the money, or because like we have to go to the job to get the money, and then the government takes the taxes, like takes our money, and then, you know, the bank, you know, if you're indebted into the bank, or you owe the bank, or, you know, you need a loan for your house or whatever, you're always like indebted into these other things, and you're really not in your own power with money. So I think those were some of my favorite things. But I would say the next thing I would like to read when it comes to finances is Women in Money, you know, something more pertinent to the times that we're in and the way that the lifestyle is now, because things have shifted so much since 1997 when the book was published, but still a decent read, and I always gain knowledge no matter what. And I think with no matter what book you read, whether it's spiritual, you know, money, anything you're educating yourself on, you have to take what serves you and leave what doesn't serve you, you know. This could be a great read for somebody, but in all ways, or, you know, for me, maybe a few key points were really pertinent to me. But I think all in all, the will for me to put forward of understanding money and gaining more literacy towards it is in itself powerful towards me and my goals, my future, and me as a woman and an adult. So yeah, I read that one, and it's very quick because it's short, and, you know, yeah, I feel like it was a nice quick read. I honestly read it in like a day and a half. But the next book that I read is The Law of Attraction, Your Secrets to Attract Money, Love, Success, and Happiness in Your Life by Zachariah Albert, which I've read a lot of, let me backtrack. I've done a lot of research about the law of attraction. I've read a lot about, you know, the law of attraction and energetic work and things like that. So I have a basis knowledge towards the law of attraction, but I pulled this book out because it doesn't have anything on the side at the library. I just pulled it out and I saw it and I thought, okay, maybe this picked me, you know, because I was curious. It didn't have anything on the side because, you know, as you're looking in the library, you're like scanning the titles, you know, kind of judging a book by its cover. But yeah, you like gaze at all the titles, and this one didn't have one. I just pulled it out and I was like, okay, maybe this is for me. And I thought that it was an okay read. It is kind of interesting. It's an interesting way that it's written, and it's very broken up, and some things are obvious, and some things were, you know, relevant and some things weren't, and that's okay. Like I said, you know, take what serves you and leave what doesn't. I think the thing that I enjoyed the most is in the very back of the book, the author puts a lot of affirmations, and I think that's really helpful. I wrote down a few that I really enjoyed and put that in my journal so that I can use those affirmations during like meditation or, you know, moments that I feel I need an extra sense of energetic power. But Yeah, I think some of the things to me were fairly obvious. Like I'm, a little ways on my journey of self-help and my connection to the higher consciousness and higher power and things like that. So if you're a beginner and you just want to get an understanding, I feel like this is a nice, soft, gentle introduction. Definitely probably a lot better books on the market, but it can't hurt to get any positive energy into your brain. So I never say anything is, completely a waste. And last but certainly not the least, this book was my favorite book of the month. And this is The Gifts of Imperfection. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are. Your Guide to a Wholehearted Life. This is by Brené Brown. She's a very famous author. I feel like a lot of people have heard her on like TED Talks and things like that. And I really enjoyed how this book was written. She's a researcher, so I felt like she brought her idea at the very beginning, and then she backed it with evidence and then examples. And I really enjoyed that. Like at the very end of each chapter, it kind of gave you like a food for thought, how to, like, in her words, she wrote, dig deeper. And I really liked that. By the end of the night, it would give me something to think about. Some of my favorite chapters that I really enjoyed were about authenticity. And I think that's very pertinent in the world that we live in with social media now, is that you are saturated with so many people that are so great in the world and doing such amazing things. On the flip side, there's always the negative, but when you're looking at it as a creative yourself, you can be like really doubtful on your own journey and where you fit in the world. And so that chapter of authenticity really, really resonated with me. If you follow me on TikTok, you probably saw I read one of my favorite passages from the authenticity chapter. The world just like pushes you every day to be everybody but your own self. And she was just writing like the hardest battle you can ever fight as a human is to be you, and it's the most honorable and the most rewarding at the end of the day. So I really enjoyed that chapter. For me, was really resonating. I also really enjoyed the chapter that she talks about perfectionism and where it really roots from. Yeah, so the chapter about perfectionism really resonated with me. I feel like, in the world that we live in, we see everybody's life through this, I would say, like rose-colored glasses, and thinking like they have this, and this. And she talks a lot about how this correlates with our shame and drives us to perfectionism because we don't feel like we're adequate enough. And it's really damaging on our consciousness to absorb that sort of self-talk. And, there is no such thing as being perfect. If we were perfect and without flaws, then, we would live in the divine heaven. We wouldn't have the human experience. The human experience is for us to learn lessons and evolve the human being and species. And, it coincides with the karma of Mother Nature. And so I feel like having more grace about flaws and existing as you are in the version that you are is extremely important to absorb and to read. When I read a lot of these self-help books, a lot of times they have a lot of the same parallels or the same, concepts and, in a different way by a different author. But each time I read a self-help book, I'm in a different place in my life. I'm a different version of myself. And I need a message in whatever version that it's coming through the book. And so I feel like even though these concepts can be, of course, like oh, I know that, you know, don't be hard on yourself. There's no such thing as perfect. But reading it at the time that you're in, you know, is your higher consciousness and your higher self, you know, helping you through the time in your life that you're with the book in that time. You know, I've read so many self-discovery, self-help, spiritualness, consciousness, like all these books, and in a different place, each time I'm a different place in my life, and I need that message in it. It's like an aha click in my brain, you know, and it's not like I'm thinking like, oh, I already know that, just like skip through the chapters. You know, these books come into my life, I let the message come to me, and you know, if I need to hear it through 10, 20, 50 books to really, you know, grasp the concept, and you know, sometimes it takes the message that many times for it to resonate. You know, people go to therapy for their whole life, you know, to work through things. Like, you should have patience with yourself to, you know, work through these muddy things. You know, as in yoga, we talk a lot about the symbolism of the lotus flower, which, you know, this beautiful thing rises through the mud, and that's so parallel to life. We live through all these experiences that, you know, can be tough and trying, but out of that comes beauty, and it's this cyclical cycle of, you know, going through darkness, finding light, going through darkness, finding light. And, you know, I just allow myself to be open to the messages, you know, through books, through YouTube, through peers, through people I meet in my life. However it may come, I just allow myself to be open to it. And so I really enjoyed this book, and I thought it was a really nice read. It was very quick, short. She writes beautifully and provides a lot of substance and depth to, you know, her opinions, her ideas. So I highly recommend this. It's a very gentle read. So yeah, really enjoy this. For the month of April, I really want to get into reading a little bit more fiction and some maybe, you know, thrillers, you know, romance, things like that. I feel like right now in the season of life I'm going through, and you know, aging as a woman, I've talked about this a lot on my channel. I'm turning 30, and I've felt a lot of nurturingness towards myself as a woman and my divine feminine self, and I've faced a lot of things, you know, good and hard, but thank you so much for being here and spending time with me today. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.